Without a shadow of a doubt, it's the Crunkest Show in social media history. I want to welcome you to another episode of the WARZONE. Every night, 7 o'clock, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I am the 5-star general. Tonight, we're going to have a conservative conversation. And we're going to tell the truth and shame the devil. And I done brought a man of God in the building to do that. So y'all get a seatbelt. This one going to be good. Tell your mama them to watch now. Let's get to it, man. Say, man, I want to welcome you to another episode of the WARZONE and tell you thank you for taking the time out to tune into your favorite African-American, Black, people of color, conservative. Today on the podcast on RaisingElephantsRadio.com, the new podcast, Talk That from a conservative perspective, we got so into it, man, we didn't even take commercial breaks. We got into a real heavy discussion, and we wanted to bring it over to you guys here tonight because there's a lot of lies being told, and we want to clear some of this up. Now, I know some of y'all going to be experts in what we're talking about, but you might want to sit back and really listen to the facts tonight so we can blow you away, so you can call your favorite representative and tell them to hell with them too tomorrow. That's what I want you to do. So sit back. I got a guest in here tonight. If you're in the political world, I mean, you already know who this young man is, Apostle CLAVER. What's going on, my friend?
Brother, sorry about the delay. I thought you were already rolling at 7, man. Well, you know, when you're the campaign manager of a statewide campaign, Fridays are crazy for me anyway. So I had to get some things done, and now we can spit some facts out and get all the folks in Warzone land involved. I want you to do what you do with your comments, checking out the comments, see what their responses are. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. I'm going to follow your lead, and let's just talk from the heart and believe that people are going to be inspired, encouraged, edified, and perhaps some hearts and minds, even political affiliations may change, man.
Well, I tell you what, man, you're a campaign manager for which candidate?
Daniel Miller. He's running for Texas Lieutenant Governor on the Republican side. I think it's, at least based on fundraising numbers, we're the leading challenger to the incumbent Dan Patrick. And look at polling numbers. That would verify that as well. Just had a straw poll a few nights ago up in Cook County, and Daniel walked away with it easy. Daniel is the founder of the Texit movement. He's a best-selling author. His first book was Line in the Sand. Talked a little bit about the spirit of Texas nationalism, and Texit, his second book, which was released in 2018, has been a bestseller 4 different times. It's an awesome book. Why and how Texas will leave the Union, and I'm actually quoted in the book myself. So he founded the Texas Nationalist Movement. We're looking at about 430,000 supporters right now. It's the 3rd largest political organization in the state behind the 2 major political parties. So with that kind of potential ground game and volunteer corps, we are a serious threat to the political establishment here in Texas. And some of those guys don't like it, but we've got a little stroke, and we're going to see what we can do about getting Daniel sworn in 2023 and unleash some liberty into this state.
Well, let me ask you a question. I mean, I get asked all the time. Why would an intelligent Black man like yourself want to be involved with the Republican Party?
Because I'm an intelligent Black man. I'm an intelligent black man. I have a very high IQ. And also, I mean, I grew up, I grew up a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
My dad ran for office a couple of times as a Democrat as a child. Um, Volunteered on the campaigns of Barbara Jordan and Mickey Leland.
Wow.
Yeah, as a child. I mean, I remember my first real political activism. I was about second grade, about 9 years old, and second or third grade, about 9 years old. And Dad was the president of the local chapter of the NAACP in Beaumont, and a common Sunday routine for us was wake up at 8, be at Sunday school by 9:30, go to church, Sunday school and church, come home, have Sunday dinner, and head out to the housing projects. And Mom and Dad kicked me out of the car. Boom, kicked me out of the car, and I'm out there doing voter registration. I could barely write. I don't even know if it was legal. I was 9 years old going through the projects doing voter registration, knocking on doors. Yeah, I've been following politics, involved in politics, and my father was the first black to file for county commissioner as a candidate for a county commissioner's position, knowing that he was going to lose. I was on those courthouse steps. He made his press conference and his announcement on the steps of the Jefferson County Courthouse. And I was in junior high school, and he pulled me out of school so I could be on those steps with him and other black supporters. And Beaumont, Texas, man, 10 miles away from Viter, the national headquarters of the Klan and all that. And he knew he was going to lose, but he was trying to set up a legal argument against racial gerrymandering at large seats that disallowed blacks to win elections. And so a lot of these black folks you see in office in Austin is because of this lawsuit that my father brought against the government back in the mid 70s. He took the money out of his own back pocket, along with some funds from the local NAACP chapter and some backing from some very successful Jewish businessmen, the Rogers family that created Texas State Optical, Ben and Vic Rogers. They were big financiers of my dad's civil rights work during his lifetime, and took that money and sued the government and broke down the barriers of gerrymandering. And I never forget the first black to get into the State House of Representatives, black guy by the name of Al Price, a distant cousin of ours, who was a airline pilot, one of the first black airline pilots. And he won a state house race, historical. And that was all because of what my dad did back then. So I grew up Democrat, but back in the mid 90s, man, I just happened to we channel surfing. Cable was still really the cutting edge communications tool, and channel surfing and living in DC at the time, and hit C-SPAN, and they were televising the Libertarian Party National Convention. And it was so small, the convention was so small, it was being held in a hotel ballroom in downtown DC. And the vice president, not the nominee for vice president, was a black man, the Libertarian Party. And I listened to what they had to say. I watched the whole thing, and it opened my eyes to the fact that I really don't believe what the Democrat Party believes in. This is more in tune to what I believe. And that began my emancipation away from the Democrat Party plantation. And the last time I voted Democrat was 1992.
Wow.
Yeah. At one point, I was the first to communicate when I moved back to Houston in 95. First, I was director of communications for the Harris County Libertarian Party. And then they elected me as vice chair of the Harris County Libertarian Party. Man, they were trying to groom me to be the nominee for the party one day for president. And 3 months after that election, I had my born again conversion experience. You know, my Moses in the burning bush, Paul on the way to the road to Damascus, born again experience in a parking garage at the corner of Westland and Alabama on the 4th floor, March 20th, 1997. And I went to them and said, look, this is what happened, and the Lord wants me out of politics. And I focused entirely on the Lord for about 10 years. I stayed out of politics. I mean, I just wasn't like I left it, but I mean like being like a political activist for about 10 years. And in that time frame, really learning about the Lord, learning about the Holy Spirit, really knowing Genesis 1:1 to Revelation 22:21 inside and out, I discovered the political ideology of the Lord Jesus Christ. You know, every aspect of life is addressed in the Bible, every aspect of life, and that includes politics. And there is a political ideology contained within the Word of God. And I discovered it. And I have spoken all over the state, all over the nation on that ideology. People are pressing me to write a book about it. The role of the church versus the role of the government. And there's an ideology there. And it is liberty centric, believe it or not. There is no religion out there that is more permissive, more liberating, more emancipating than worshiping the Lord Jesus Christ, the Christian religion. Most people think, you know, Christianity, being a believer, is incarcerating. It's just the opposite. You know, Jesus Christ, 2 Corinthians 3:17, is identified as liberty personified. Now, the Lord is the Spirit, is what it says. Now, the Lord is the Spirit, capital S. And where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty or freedom, you know, depending on which version of the Bible you happen to study. So, you know, that's my wife, y'all. She just ignores me when I'm communicating and stuff. She don't care. So, you know, my whole political philosophy changed. And when I got back to politics, when the Lord told me it was time to get back in, he told me, get back into politics. And I came back to the GOP. I didn't go back to the Libertarian Party. I came back to the GOP. And doors opened up immediately and sort of became an influencer right away. But my economic theory, my social theory, I literally, 1 month before my born again experience, I was cleaning out my office. You know, I got married almost 3 years ago, and I have a stepdaughter. And so my office was a spare bedroom, and we needed that space to be my daughter's bedroom. So I had to clear that out, and we built this and all of that. And I'd been wanting to find this article that I wrote, this commentary, this op-ed that I wrote, and sent around to all different media outlets via fax machine, because there was no email back then, right? It was fax machines. I sent these faxes out, this article out by fax machine to all these different media outlets, because I was hoping to, you know, be a syndicated columnist or something, right? And of all people, Texas Southern University student newspaper picked it up, and then they published it. And it was an article in which I was stating I was in favor of homosexual marriage. That was 1 month before my born again experience, my salvation experience, almost to the day. 1 month. 1 month later, what happened to me in that parking garage completely changed my views. Completely changed my views. Okay. So, I mean, this is a little background about me, and just a little. I mean, some of the things that the Lord has allowed me to do politically when it comes to educating people of all different backgrounds. I mean, I'm a 5-star, just like you, man. You're an education activist. During the heyday, the zenith of the Tea Party, man, there was one month I was on the road. 16 out of 31 days I was on an airplane somewhere, going somewhere, speaking at rallies, training volunteers, knocking on doors in black neighborhoods, polling them about their political thought and everything. So, you know, you compliment me, you flatter me about um, my intelligence and my experience and my knowledge and all of that. But I've done a lot. I've been around a while. I don't look my age. I've seen a lot. I've learned a lot. And I'm able to share a lot of knowledge with people, man. I've seen worse times than this in the United States socially. I've seen it politically. I have seen it. I've lived through it. It's pretty bad now, but I have seen worse days in this country.
Well, we had a phenomenal conversation today.
Yeah,
if y'all missed that podcast, I'll post it when I get the link. But it was so hot, we didn't even do commercial breaks, and we're supposed to do commercial breaks every 15 minutes. We just rolled through it today.
2 hours.
2 hours straight, just roll through it. So we're gonna bring some of this up. Let's go back to what we were talking about earlier today.
Okay.
And it kind of, I want you to pull up the clip of MLK's niece.
Okay, I got it right here.
We finna shock y'all with some things. There's a myth, and I think it's just used to try to convince black people not to be a part of the Republican Party. If it's somebody's opinion, that's their opinion, that the Republican Party is going to suck us black folks in and use us up and then kick us out. They're going to use us up and then throw us to the wolves. And the thing is, okay, well, if they do that, ain't that what the Democrats been doing for the last 50 years of my life?
The entirety of the entire history of the Democrat Party. The entire history of the Democrat Party has been to exploit black people. I mean, that's the definition of racism. The exploitation of one race to the benefit of another. That is the dictionary definition of racism. The exploitation of one race for the benefit of another. Some people call this racist, that racist, this racist, that. They don't even know what a racism is. The dictionary definition is the exploitation of one race for the benefit of the other. Okay, and that's what the Democrat Party has been doing since its existence and still does to this moment we are speaking to each other. That's what they do.
Well, I totally agree with you. We were talking about, how people perceive Republicans to be, and I brought up the fact that, we got pictures of Democrat big dogs in the room being honored by Republican Governor Greg Abbott in 2018. This is after Trump was voted president. This is after the country started going haywire. So, everybody's splitting up, dividing, going at each other's throat. And in this private luncheon, Governor Greg Abbott showed up to honor these black Democrats that supported him. And people were like, wow. And I'm like, wow, for what? They do this on a daily basis. We get sold out on a daily basis. And that's why they keep their little cliques small. They don't want a lot of people in their cliques because they can go to these private functions and do that and give the Republican Party money or accept money from the Republican Party, which I don't turn down nothing but my collar. Invite me in a room full of money and find out. I ain't gonna turn down nothing but my collar. But the lies that are being told, especially in Harris County by the big dogs. And it seems like all the big dogs were in the room that day with the governor, taking pictures with him. I sent you a picture of the current NAACP president in a picture with Dr. Stephen Holtze and another gentleman. But we know in the political world in Texas, Holtze is a big dog Republican. He's a big dog conservative, man.
Endorsed Daniel Miller.
Exactly. So why with these people who seem to hate, Republicans, be in a room eating up their food, fraternizing with them, with no explanation to their people. Because they like screwing you over. They know you're not going to do anything about it. They can come with 1,000,001 excuses, and then you'll forgive them and you'll go back to the polls and vote them back in.
It's a game to them, bro. It's a game.
That's all it is.
It's a game. They enjoy it. They enjoy it. They get a kick out of it. It bolsters their ego. And, they get their rocks off on this, man.
Thunder said the current state of the black community is a direct result of the Democratic Party for the last 60 years. We as BMs, I guess black males, need to regain control of our community. Again, there's something inside of your statement where you said this is a direct result of the Democratic Party for the last 60 years. So this is my friend. We're good. So if it's for the last 60 years, how does Symphonia Thompson stay in office for 50 of them? But yet y'all complain about her every day. But yet she's been in office for a half a century.
Half a century.
A half of a century. And yet I hear people complain about her all the time. Now, I will say that whenever I've had an issue and I went to her, called her, she addressed it. So some things I don't see that y'all see. But some people, the bulk of the people complain. So explain to me, if it's been messed up for the last 60 years, how do you vote somebody in for the last 50 of them? That's crazy, ain't it? That's crazy. We don't want to change the politicians, and that makes me think something. You know what I call it, Claver? And I call it the funky draw syndrome. The funky draw syndrome. Some of y'all don't change y'all funky draws, let alone change a politician. I'm being honest, man. Some of y'all don't even change your funky draws, and that's why you don't know how to change these politicians out. And you'll keep wearing them funky draws, knowing full well no matter where you go, people can smell it. They can smell the bullshit from a mile away. So that's how you treat your politicians, like funky draws. So that's why your community looks like shit. And I'm being straight up with y'all. Everybody wants to debate. And what really killed me, and this what kicked us off today, is how these people are out here fighting for voter rights, voter suppression.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I got kicked off today, and we didn't hit no commercial breaks. These people are so disconnected from history, from the civil rights movement, from the actual foundations of how we even got civil rights. Mm-hmm. They get out and they speak on it every day. And at the same time, you had to be, and it's just my opinion, and you can chime in. You had to be a young fool back in the civil rights era, because right now you're an old ass fool. I mean that. So the thing is we shouldn't support the Republican Party because they ain't did nothing for black people. Can you dispel that rumor that the Republican Party has not done nothing for black people? Give these people a quick history lesson on how the Republican Party even came about in the state of Texas.
The Republican Party of Texas was founded by 200 black men doing Reconstruction, the latter days of Reconstruction. And I think I should have looked it up, but about 10 white guys, but it was 200 black men that started the Republican Party in Texas. In fact, the Republican Party was started on the primary foundation of anti-slavery. So Abraham Lincoln was the first Republican Party president. The Whigs basically dissolved, evaporated into the dustbin of history because they were too wishy-washy, too lily-livered about the issue of slavery. The Democrat Party whether they were Northern Democrats or Southern Democrats, were generally pro-slavery. Whether they were Northern Democrats or Southern Democrats, they were pro-slavery. And the Whigs were just too weak. And so you had abolitionists primarily that started the Republican Party in the 1850s, in the late 1850s. And the first Republican president was Abraham Lincoln, who did not win a majority of the vote, but he won based on the Electoral College that Democrats want to get rid of right now. You wouldn't have had Abraham Lincoln. You wouldn't have had the Emancipation Proclamation and the deliverance from slavery of our ancestors if it wasn't for the Electoral College. And our Democrats want to get rid of it. And there's black people walking around right now believing that Abraham Lincoln was a Democrat. Because just a couple of days ago, when Joe Biden was down there in Atlanta in the ATL talking about this John Lewis so-called voting rights bill, what it is a vote rigging, election rigging bill is what it is. And he said, you're going to be on the side of King, or you're going to be on the side of Bull Connor? You're going to be on the side of John Lewis, or you're going to be on the side of George Wallace? You're going to be on the side of Abraham Lincoln, or on the side of Jefferson Davis? And every single person he mentioned was a Democrat except for Abraham Lincoln. He was a Republican. Bull Connor was a Democrat. Jefferson Davis.
You're talking about the Bull Connor that was beating the hell out, had his police officers beating the hell out of people during the Civil Rights era.
Out of black children, sicking German shepherds on them, fire hoses. Biden talked about it. President Peepaw, he talked about it. Hey, fire hoses ripping the skin off of young people, young black people. That was a Democrat. George Wallace, a Democrat, standing in the doorways of the University of Alabama, not allowing the desegregation of the University of Alabama, while Joe Namath is sitting there watching, hoping that somebody would push Wallace out of the way. Okay, those were Democrats.
So Democrats. So you're telling me that while Wallace is having his people block the doors of the schools, the Republicans, on the other hand, were saying unblock the doors of the schools.
Right. So now you
give them the right to vote.
Right. You had a split. Okay. You had a split in the Democrat Party. You had the Dixiecrats, who were Democrats and remained Democrats. And then you had the civil rights wing of the Democrat Party, which my dad was a part of, and black Democrats below the Mason-Dixon line, because the Republican Party had basically been chased out of Dixie, right? It was basically one-party rule. You didn't even have Republican primaries in Texas. So if you were black and you wanted to be politically involved, you didn't have any other choice but to be connected to the Democrat Party. Now, there was two wings of it. And so my dad, being a Democrat, he was aligned with such people as Congressman Jack Brooks, a dear friend of his, who championed civil rights. White congressman from Southeast Texas who championed civil rights. So you had some white Democrats, because blacks weren't being elected. You had white Democrats who were aligning with the civil rights movement, but the party was still primarily being controlled by white segregationists. That's why it took Republican votes in the U.S. Congress to pass both the 64 Civil Rights Act and the 65 Voting Rights Act.
So what you're telling me, both of those acts would not have been passed if it was not for
Republicans basically passed them. So when Lyndon Baines Johnson was twisting arms, he was trying to twist Democrat arms to come across and vote for civil rights. He didn't have to twist any Republican arms. Republicans were on board. Okay, it was Democrats, it was John F. Kennedy and the 1957 Civil Rights Act that voted against the Civil Rights Act.
You talking about the Great White Hope, John F. Kennedy?
I'm talking about JFK.
Voted against
the 1957 Civil Rights Act, and most black people don't even know that there was a 57 Civil Rights Act.
But yet, black people who are very, very misinformed celebrate this man on a daily basis.
He was very politically astute. He was very instrumental. He and LBJ were very instrumental in what we see today as far as black people being so wedded, shackled, chained to the Democrat Party the way they are. We are the only demographic, I believe, on the planet. Black people in America are the only demographic on the planet, certainly in the United States, where we measure our dedication to our race based on which political party we affiliate with. White people don't do that. Hispanic Latinos don't do that. Asians don't do that. Native Americans don't do that. Women don't do that. Men don't do that. Homosexuals don't do that. But black people as a demographic measure our dedication, our fidelity to our skin pigmentation based primarily on which political party we affiliate with. And if we don't happen to be a Democrat, we automatically get called step and fetch, automatically get called, Uncle Tom's, Oreo, or whatever, coconut, whatever, okay? We get all the pejoratives because we don't fall in line with the black dogma, political dogma. Well, like you started the program with, I'm black, I'm intelligent, and I have the liberty, the right, the Jesus-given liberty to choose who I wish to associate with. And I don't want to associate with the Democrat Party, the party of steal, kill, and destroy. I don't have anything. I don't want to have anything to do with the Democrat Party, and I don't want the Democrat Party having any say in my quality of life. So, when we were talking about JFK, I didn't get a chance to finish this fact when we were talking earlier this afternoon during your program, 5-Star. But this is where the political shift started happening racially. In 1956, 60% of black voters voted for the Republican Dwight D. Eisenhower for re-election as president in 56. In 1960, the two major party nominees were JFK of the Democrats, Richard Nixon for the Republicans. And so, you had luminaries like Sammy Davis Jr. and Jackie Robinson. I mean, well-known Republicans that were backing Nixon. Well, that same election cycle, Dr. King was jailed in Alabama, burning. And so two things happened. First, Nixon was slow on the trigger in trying to make a move to get Dr. King released. For political expedience, JFK, who voted against the 57 Civil Rights Act, he made a phone call. One phone call. And I think it was Robert Kennedy. I don't even think it was JFK. And subsequently, Dr. King was released from jail, and Daddy King and most of the black pastors out of Atlanta switched their allegiance based on that from Nixon, because Daddy King was a Republican. Daddy King was a Republican all his life.
So Martin Luther King Sr. was a Republican as well as Junior.
As Junior and his brother, his uncle, all Republicans. Okay. And so and even after Kennedy called, Nixon didn't call and ticked off Jackie Robinson and Sammy Davis Jr. and ticked them off. All right. Nixon still got 30% of the black vote. And it's been going downhill as a percentage ever since until Trump ran for office. And,
So
and it ticked up.
I think the biggest argument today on the podcast was you had people saying King was a Democrat. You got that clip queued up.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, you want Alveda King? You want his niece, who I know
Yeah,
personally?
I want the niece. Let's rock with the Malcolm X clip. Got us. It got hit on Facebook, so we can't play that one. They muted him out for copyright purposes. I just think because it's Malcolm, but
they never did it.
Miss King for me.
Yeah, they never played it. They never did that before. Anyway, here's Alveda King. She's the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
We land of liberty of the land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrims cried, from every mountainside.
I'm Dr. Alveda King, niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I greet you today, and I just want to share with you a little bit about my family and my history. My uncle, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., during his lifetime, was a Republican, as was my father, his brother, Reverend A.D. King, and my grandfather, Dr. Martin Luther King Sr. The Republican Party historically has supported the rights of the oppressed. During the times of slavery, many of the abolitionists were Republicans. Today, we have another issue that is affecting the lives and freedom of many of Americans. Those are the little babies, the preborn. And so as the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I want to encourage you today to remember the rights of all people, from the womb to the tomb. Dr. King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Dr. King also said that the Negro cannot win if he's willing to sacrifice the futures of his children for immediate personal comfort and safety. And so today I encourage you, as you make very important decisions on whom you will vote for, to remember to vote for your values and vote for life, liberty, and justice.
Let freedom ring, and if America is to be a great nation, this must become true.
Paid for the National Black Republican Association.
There you have it, man.
Yeah. I mean, for those that did not know, Martin, his father's brother, were all Republicans. And according to Dr. King, you can't sacrifice your children for the comforts of today. Why do you think your school system's all messed up? Why do you think these Democratic clowns have messed up your school system? They're sacrificing the children for the comforts of today. But see, you want to be mad at Apostle Claver. You want to be mad at Gary Monroe because we just tell the truth about the conversation. You see, we just tell the truth about what we're talking about, and you don't want the truth exposed. You people are not fighting for voter rights. You don't give a damn about voter suppression. You only care about the ability to cheat to win an election. You're not it. Let me see if I can get this right, Claver, because you tell me I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. You know, I'm 2 sandwiches short of a picnic.
Yeah, but you're pretty sharp. You ain't dull.
It don't take 60 years to fix a school system. Not if you want it fixed. If you want it fixed, you're
They're
gonna
not trying to fix it 5-star.
They don't want it fixed.
It's in destruction mode. It's been in destruction mode since they created the unconstitutional. We talked about this afternoon. I don't mind repeating because I mean it ain't gonna be, it ain't gonna be different from what I said earlier. It started with the establishment of the unconstitutional U.S. Department of Education under Jimmy Carter. That's when educational outcomes began to tank, and it turned from teaching our children, educating our children, to indoctrinating our children. And it's no longer about reading, writing, arithmetic, science, history taught correctly. It's about attitudes, values, beliefs, and behaviors. I'll say it for you again. You can repeat after me. Attitudes, values, beliefs, and behaviors. That's what your children are being graded on in school right now. That's why 5 stars up at the ISDs all the time, fighting and scratching and scraping for the future of our children, for the matriculation of our children, the proper matriculation of our children, fighting for education and not indoctrination. So that the first question a child gets when they sit down in a desk in a Texas government school, which pronoun do you prefer? They don't care whether or not the child eventually masters trigonometry. They want to know if you're cisgendered or non-binary or what attitudes, values, beliefs, and behaviors.
Look here, man. Now I don't even understand all that pronoun stuff.
It's stupid.
But here's my thing. If you can be whatever sexuality you want to be until you get to the jailhouse. Because when they book you in, you say whatever you want to be. But if you were born a male, you're going on that side where the men go.
Yep.
You're going to pull them boxes out your ass. And you're going to be a man in there unless you decide you want to be something else. So I don't understand all this pronoun stuff. I mean, bottom line, whether they got a pronoun or whatever you want to be called, if your ass can't read, you just a dumb pronoun. But you got it. Go ahead. I'll just be venting something.
Well, the other thing I wanted to point out, we were talking about the transition when blacks, used to be really an independent voting bloc. They would go back and forth between Democrat and Republican, and they really wielded a lot of political power. That's what Malcolm X was talking about, which he said, you voting for Democrats, you are a political chump. And we can play it and they may block it, but for those who are watching live, we can still play it and they can hear it. But Malik El-Haj Shabazz said, if you're voting for Democrats, you're a political chump. And that was back in the 60s before he was assassinated.
Well, here's my question to you. Malcolm said that in the 60s. Now, we're in 2022. We're worse off than where we were in the 60s.
Exactly.
We're worse than where we were in the 60s.
Isn't it more profound what he said back then? Isn't it more timely for this day that we live in than what it was back in the 60s when it was even more turmoil? And I want to say this right here. I want to finish out this point because I don't know if there's a lot of black people that know this and they still follow the Democrat Party. They still belong or possessed by the Democrat Party, are still Democrat Party property. Okay? It's well known that LBJ, his motivation for signing the Civil Rights Act of 64 and the Voting Rights Act of 65, you know the quote, I'll have them N-words voting Democrat for 150 years. He's 1/3 of the way there. He's dead and gone. And his objective, his goal, to have black folks voting Democrat, the anti-black party, the steal, kill, and destroy party, for 150 years, a century and a half, he's over 1/3 there. Just for that, those two acts, the 64 Civil Rights Act, the 65 Voting Rights Act. That was his motivation. And he would get angry because he wasn't putting the pantheon, of great black leaders, with King Kennedy. I don't know if you remember that, brother. You would walk into a black living room anywhere in the United States, and they'd have that picture up there, King Kennedy, right? That, that had that motif up there on there.
My mama had one.
Who had one?
Mama had one of them pictures.
Yeah. King Kennedy, and LBJ was, he had a burr in his saddle to the day he died because his picture wasn't up there. That was his motivation. One of the smartest politicians ever to come along, LBJ. He knew exactly what he was doing. And his move to this day is impacting a lot of folks that are watching us right now.
So is it, what's your opinion on where we are now? Where we are now is, I think that the people who are Democrat, who are fed up and feeling like, well, I can't go to the Republican Party because they're the racists.
No, that's not the reason. No, that's not the reason.
Talk to me.
I think it was about 2012. And I had a political action committee, ragingelephants.org. And that's how Raging Elephants Radio came about, because I already had name ID nationally with ragingelephants.org. And I was putting up billboards all over the nation. I never would have to put up, I would never have to submit press releases or anything like that. I just put up a billboard and wait for the media to catch up. And it'd be TV stories in LA and in Ohio and in South Carolina and all over the place, right? So I'll put one up in East Austin, put up two in East Austin. And one of them, when MLK was a Republican, and the other one was GOP is the new black, and and it would always cause media attention. And so a local radio station, after a TV station had done this lengthy piece on the billboard and interviewed me at one of the billboards and interviewed citizens, and then went to the Capitol and gave the story of, how blacks were plentiful under the Pink Dome in Austin during the time of Reconstruction. And then there was this drought of black representation after Reconstruction was deconstructed, and how blacks got back in to office as Republicans. James White and others, I helped him get elected in 2010 as Republicans. And after that story was done on the local TV station in Austin, for the next 2 days, the main topic on the morning drive show, the main number one morning drive talk show, was that billboard, and was it true, and blacks and their allegiance to the Democrat Party and all of that. And so they were really talking about the differences in the belief systems and the Republicans and the Democrats. It was a really good discussion. They didn't invite me on. They didn't try to invite. I don't think they ever reached out to have me on, but I was listening, and there was one lady who called up, and I've heard this. This may have been the first. This was maybe in the first time, but I witnessed this several times. But this is maybe the first time I really witnessed it. And one lady called in, and she started crying because she says she realized she was a Republican. And the problem was, the reason she was crying was because of really all the hate that she had generated toward any black people who were Republicans, all the pejoratives she called them, and traitors to the race and all of that. And what she was afraid of is that now she was going to be the recipient of that. Her eyes had been opened, and she realized that her values really lined up with the Republican Party. Her Judeo-Christian ethics, her being a church-going Christian, believing in the Lord Jesus Christ, and she realized she was a Republican, and she was afraid because now all of a sudden, possibly, she could be ostracized. She could be exiled. She could be the recipient of all the pejoratives and all the bad treatment, the segregation that the Democrats were going to, her Democrat friends were going to subject her to if she revealed that her eyes had been opened, she had experienced political conversion, and that she really was a Republican. That's what a lot of black folks are afraid of. They're cowards.
So when you speak of the Republican values, let's see if some of y'all out there have those same values. Speak on the values of it, my friend.
The political ideology of the Bible is life, liberty, and prosperity. That's the ideology of the Bible and of the GOP in three simple words: life, liberty, and prosperity. In fact, Ecclesiastes chapter 10 verse 2. You can look it up, or I can pull it up. I mean, I'll pull it up for you. I will read it for you. No problem. Because I want people to understand that when you go Democrat, when you go woke, here it is, Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 2, NIV version, and I quote, "The heart of the wise inclines to the right, but the heart of the fool to the left." Are you a leftist? Are you a socialist? Are you a Democrat? You are a biblically defined fool.
On the
The
left.
heart of the wise inclines to the right.
To the right.
Heart of the fool to the left.
So let me ask you something. Because somebody out there don't go to church. Who on the left? Which part is on the left? With the fools.
Biblically defined fools. See, leftism, when you say you are a leftist, what you are saying is that you believe in the power of government, that government is the solution to most everything, if not all things. And that's what Democrats are always leaning upon. The government. The government's going to be, that's what Barack Insane Obama said, right? We got to get back to the part, he says, we got to get back to the attitude that government is good. When the founding of this nation was based on government is dangerous and we must have a document to keep it
in order.
In its boundary. Because government is like a black hole. Government, by its very nature, seeks to pull power away from the governed like a black hole. And if you don't keep it in check, it will slowly, if not in haste, pull away the power from the people to the organism called the government. So at the founding of the United States, they created a document, a constitution, to specifically define what authority the government would have, but more importantly, what authority it wouldn't have. And you had the Federalist and you had the Anti-Federalist. And it was the Anti-Federalist. They weren't against a Federalist system per se. What they were saying, they wanted even less power to the so-called federal government. They said if you formed any type of centralized government at all, that eventually what you would have is government dominating the quality of your life period. And so we wouldn't even have the Bill of Rights if it wasn't for the likes of Patrick Henry, who was an anti-federalist. Their argument was, look, it's clearly spelled out in the Constitution what the role of the government is. And the anti-federalists like Patrick Henry were saying, oh, no. We want it in black and white. The government shall not. The government shall not. And that's how you got the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. The government shall not make any laws abridging your right to defend yourself against criminal element and tyrannical government. The Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. The government shall not make any laws that dictate your ability to worship how you want, when you want. The government shall not have the ability to abridge your ability to express yourself, to communicate in speech, in the press. The government shall not have the right to violate your privacy, which it does every single day, every single year, okay, with the income tax, the 16th Amendment being a clear violation of the 4th Amendment. The 5th Amendment the government shall not force you to incriminate yourself. Sixth Amendment. You shall have a speedy trial. You have a right to a jury trial. You have a right to habeas corpus. You have a right to due process, judicial due process. Ninth Amendment, another further clarification on the rights of the states versus the federal government and the right of the individual over the federal government. The Ninth Amendment and the 10th Amendment, that anything that's not outlined in Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, where 18 areas the federal government is given authority in, not over, but in Article 1, Section 8, 18 areas the federal government is supposed to be permitted to have authority in. And if it's not in that list, including education, it's the rights of the state. Election isn't in there. Education isn't in there. Healthcare isn't in there. Benevolence isn't in there, like Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, Section 8, how none of that's in there. Article 1, Section 8. And the 10th Amendment says if it's not in that article, then the people within the states are to determine how those things are to be governed. And the federal government, I don't even call it the federal government anymore. It is centralized, total centralized control. Federalism disappeared at the turn of the century, turn of the 20th century, not the 21st century. And it was Democrats leading the way the whole time. Woodrow Wilson was awful, perhaps the most racist president we've ever had. He's the one that showed birth of the nation in the White House. Democrat Woodrow Wilson, the first real globalist, yielding to socialism and communist tenets at the time of the Red Revolution. Communism has been around for a couple of 100 years, 250 years. And guys like Woodrow Wilson, Democrats like Woodrow Wilson, FDR, incrementally allowing socialism, communism, Marxism into the body politic of the United States, to the point where all 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto, just like we got 10 amendments in the U.S. Bill of Rights, just like there's 10 commandments, well, there's 10 planks in the Communist Manifesto. And all 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto are in full effect in the United States today in some form or fashion. It's just not called what it's called here in the Communist Manifesto.
Well, let me ask you a question, because I want to get over here, because this way it get a little fun, and it got fun today. We were breaking down some of the most important races in the state of Texas, and I'm gonna start with Lieutenant Governor. That's my man Dan Patrick, and of course down here in Houston, you got a lady named Carla Brayley that's running for Lieutenant Governor. I don't know if somebody made her a hot toddy and put too much brandy in it, but ma'am, you ain't got a shot in hell of winning no lieutenant governor. Why would they not put somebody up who could actually possibly try to pull this off, when we know this is a woman that couldn't even win a city council District D race? She couldn't even win that race. But this is the boulets that pick who they want to run for what they want them to run for. Don't give a damn if they can win or not. But you're going to go waste a vote on her when you can actually vote for somebody to come in and do what they need to do. Now, let's get it straight, because, the Republican Party has its fractions. You got conservatives and you got rhinos. Patrick, Abbott, rhinos, never get my vote. Not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You see what I'm saying? But now, like in your lieutenant governor race, right?
That's correct.
Daniel Miller.
Correct.
All right. So should I vote for Daniel, or if they got somebody black, should I just vote for them because they black? I'm not falling for that no more. I ain't just voting for folk because they black. I don't want the symbolism. I want what come with the game. I got to get something out the deal now because Joe Biden has showed y'all at the highest level that you ain't shit and your vote don't mean nothing. I got it now. What's your opinion, man? Carla Brayton, what's your opinion?
Oh, man, come on now. I didn't even know her. I didn't even know she was running. I didn't know she was running for Light Gov until last Saturday. San Angelo chapter of the NAACP had a virtual candidates forum. Daniel, who I'm the campaign manager for, Daniel Miller from Nederland, Texas. I grew up in Beaumont. Well, he's not from Nederland. He actually was born and raised up in Northeast Texas around the Longview area, but he chose to make his home in mid-Jefferson County in Nederland. So I kind of call him a homeboy. White man and his wife, Kara, and I'm going to say this in public. I've said it several times. I will say it again whenever it's appropriate and without hesitation. I love Daniel Miller. I love him deeply. I love his wife, Kara, deeply. I don't care about their skin pigmentation. That is my brother. I love him. That man has come to my rescue. I cannot count the times without complaining a peep. Just unconditional love I've received from that man and his wife. Okay? More so than some black Democrats I've known all my life. All right? I love him deeply. And I am honored to be his campaign manager, for him to have enough trust in me and believe that I would support him in the way that I have and will always. Okay? It's flattering. It's an honor. That guy is so smart. I mean, I think Daniel's IQ has got to be, I'm going to say 6 to 8 points higher than mine, and mine's not chopped liver. Brilliant man. Brilliant man. Author of 2 books. His second one, Texit, like I said earlier, 4-time bestseller. Brilliant man. So last Saturday, he had a previous engagement during the campaign. And so NAACP was allowing surrogates. And so I filled in for him on that virtual town hall, forum, candidate forum. And there was Braley. And so can you imagine me and Braley opposite of each other? And it was hilarious, man. She didn't know anything about Texas politics. She didn't know the nuts and bolts of how things happen under the Pink Dome.
So why in the hell is she even in the damn race?
They got to have somebody. And she's willing. They don't have a bench here in Texas. They don't have
what I said earlier today.
They don't have a credible candidate on the ballot for anything statewide. Not one single credible candidate that has a snowball's chance to win anything.
Now, here's the thing. That when you say the bench, y'all, we're looking at it like a basketball team. So, you got Claver, who's on my team. He's on the floor. He like Michael Jordan. Now on my bench, I got LeBron James and Spud Webb.
And you the head coach.
I'm the head coach.
You got.
I need to sub Jordan with LeBron or Spud. So I go get Carla Braley, who's Spud Webb, and throw her on the floor. That's what they done did. They done threw her on the floor. Look at these races. Look at what. Let me tell you something. Look at these races and look at the people that are running. Look at these races. Let's look at my man Lee Merritt. What is he running for, Claver?
AG.
Attorney General
of Texas.
What the hell has Lee Merritt done? Even remotely to say that he can do that job.
Not a single Democrat would know what to do with the job if they got sworn in. It would be a Lena Dum Hidalgo situation, who has no business being the county judge of the third largest county in the country, second largest. I think we surpassed Cook County in the last census. I got to double check. Just one on a whim, just because there was a blue wave that went through Harris County. She's that dumb is trying to govern a county this large, larger than most states, larger than nearly 40 states of the union. They don't know what to do with that. There's not a single Democrat on the ballot running to be their party's nominee for any statewide office, or dare I say state office at all, that would know what to do with the office. Not qualified. Maybe eligible to be on the ballot based on constitutional measures, constitutional requirements, eligible, but not qualified. And there is a difference, 5-star.
Mm-hmm. So here's my thing. You were in this virtual forum with Carla Braley, who's running for lieutenant governor. The black woman running for lieutenant governor.
It was a stand-up. It could have been a stand-up comic skit. It could have been. It was ridiculous. So
really, if they asked you a question, you were able to answer. You were your man's proxy because he wasn't able to beat her.
Correct.
And they would ask her a question, and she was like, "Duh, which way do they go? Which way do they go?"
No, she would parrot what she's heard other Democrats say on national media on certain issues. Okay, whether it's the John Lewis election rigging bill, and they asked a question about the infrastructure bill, okay, which she really didn't know anything about. So I had to break it down for him on the infrastructure bill. I had to spit the truth out on the infrastructure bill. And then I had to break it down for them why we got transportation and infrastructure problems here in Texas and what Texans can do about it. Because I know Texas. I know how Texas is governed. I know how TxDOT operates. I know how transportation and toll road proliferation and system finance and all of that, how our liberty of mobility to get from point A to point B is being endangered here in Texas. I could give a salient, cogent, profound answer, solutions to the question that was asked. All she could give was parroting what she heard from the national media, what she hears from Nancy Pelosi's pressers up there on Capitol Hill. There wasn't any original thought that went into any of her answers.
So basically, she plagiarized the conversation.
She just that's what they all do. They just copy the talking points they hear on MSDNC. By the way, I am the first. I need to trademark it because I was the first one to call MSNBC MSDNC, which now Sean Hannity and Donald Trump now do. I did it in 2011 on MSNBC, on MSDNC, on the Martin Bashir show when they had me on after I gave a speech down at the Greyhound track back in 2011. I went on MSNBC and called it MSDNC in my first sentence. Okay? And so that's all they listen to is MSNBC and CNN and NPR and, National Public Television and wherever their demagogues, their political gods congregate and speak, they just listen to that and repeat what they hear from them. They can't come up with the original thought.
I tell you this here in Harris County because I'm a bold dude, right? I wear a little chip on my shoulder. I make an open challenge right now to any elected official in Harris County. Bring your behind to this war zone and go 101 with me. Let's talk the issues. Matter of fact, you keep your computer screen open. Keep you some notes up there. The only problem you're going to have, you're not going to know the questions beforehand. You're not going to be able to learn the answers. You feel what I'm saying? We, as a black people, because I want to clarify something. I said it earlier. I'm not a people of color. Don't loop me in with a whole bunch of other people. I'm not an African American. I ain't from Africa. I'm black. I will challenge any one of them to an open debate on the issues. Because you know what? These people are not smart, man.
You be waiting till you in the old folks home.
Oh, I already know. But that should show the voters. When your people can't even talk the issues, how they gonna go in there and advocate for them? You see what I'm saying? They play games. They play games. You in a room with Republicans and can't justify why you in there. But then us Republicans are looking at our people like, what the hell you doing in the room with them anyway? You see what I'm saying? So they all get money from the same people. They all giving money to the same people. And they got us out here hating each other. You got us out here as black Republicans, and I don't defend nothing. You can say what you want about me. Call me the runaway Democratic slave, because I'm not going back to the plantation. And as much as I head up to Minneapolis, I'm always going towards the north anyway. I'm not coming back down here with this foolishness. We are not getting anywhere, but the biggest question would be, my friend, is how do we fix it?
Doing what we're doing right now. We're crusading right now. We're fighting right now. We're fighting with the best weapon that God has given us, the ability to articulate, the ability to tell the truth, to not be bamboozled, to not be parrots, to be able to construct original thought, to think for ourselves, to understand when we are emancipated and when we are incarcerated. See, if you don't know the definition of liberty, if you don't know the definition of freedom, liberty and freedom are synonymous. If you don't know the definition of it, if you can't recognize, identify liberty, freedom, then you will not be able to identify tyranny. It's anonym. Most black people do not understand the difference between liberty and tyranny. They don't understand it. They willingly accept tyranny. They willingly accept their incarceration. And they wonder why they can't put food on the table unless they're sucking at the teat of the government. You go out there and get food stamps, you ain't free. You're not free if you're getting food stamps. They give you money. They give you money with strings attached. They give you money with strings attached. You can't go take them food stamps and do what you want with it. They tell you can only, like a mama or a daddy, you can only spend this money on certain things. You can't use those food stamps to go get you some transportation.
Let's talk about this freeness. With your free clinics, your free COVID tests, your child care credits and all that.
Yeah, your health care, your Obamacare.
Is a bag of oxtails.
Go for it.
About 10 of them in there.
Go for it.
The price is $25 for this. When you get your free COVID test, they get it back. They get the money back from that through overcharging us for this, for overcharging us for gasoline. This is how they get their money back. So all y'all out there think you beating the system. You see what I'm saying? You might be getting food stamps. They giving you these extra food stamps, but you ain't got enough money to put gas in your car now because gas is $3.25 a gallon. So when you think that you're winning and something is free, it's not free. But the Democrats have you believing that it's free. They have you believing that they're doing something for you when in all actuality, they're destroying the economy.
Especially in the black community.
They're destroying it.
They talk about income inequality. They talk about wealth inequality, okay? But and the reason they got to give you all this free stuff is because of income inequality, because of net worth inequality. But every policy that they put forth and enact exacerbates the inequality. They're going to give you universal pre-K. They're going to give you free child care. Oh, my Build Back Better plan is going to lower the cost of child care. Well, how do they do that? They do it through government subsidies. Okay? How is it that, in Obamacare, you don't have to pay an insurance premium. You don't have a copay. You go get, your prescription and it's $3. and you doing an end zone dance and you raising your hands to the Lord. But then now you got to drive down the street and you got to put $5, you got to put $6 a gas in your car for 2 gallons to be able to get back home because it's too expensive.
But
It's called inflation.
see, that's the problem. They don't understand inflation. Where you getting it free on one end, they staying you on the other end. You think a pandemic, they stopped making cows when the pandemic came through? When they stopped making cows, man? When they stopped cutting the ox, the tail off the cow, man? All of a sudden, the same thing that cost $2 a pound is now $8 a pound.
It's basic
they don't understand inflation.
It's basic economics. You cranking up that printing press and you putting more money into the economy and you're devaluing the dollar and you've got too many dollars chasing too few goods, okay? And it's causing inflation. Some of these bills that they're passing, the Democrats are passing, these big, what they call omnibus spending bills, the COVID relief package that Joe Biden says, is such a big accomplishment, or the infrastructure bill, in which only, less than 10% of that money was actually for infrastructure. The rest of it was just socialism and leftist, pet projects, okay? Those bills, a single spending bill, larger than the entire federal budget in some of the presidential years of George Bush the Younger. $3 trillion in one bill? $2 trillion in another bill? $1.75 trillion in another bill? $7 trillion in spending in an economy of $20 trillion? That's absurd. That's why milk costs what it costs now. Eggs cost what it costs now. Bread costs what it costs now. Laundry detergent costs if you can get it, if you can find it, if it's on the shelves. Bottled water. That's why Dollar General raised their prices from $1 to $1.25. Because of these stupid policies and out of control spending being led by Democrats, because government is the God of the Democrat. Government is the God of the Democrat. And you got to keep feeding you got to keep feeding government. You got to keep the taxes rolling. And if you can't tax the people, just crank up the printing press through the Federal Reserve. And this is what you got. You can't get any money out of your savings account. You put money in a savings account, you're going to end up negative after taxation. Now the stock market is tanking because it's all a mirage. It's all been a mirage. It was a mirage all during the Obama years. It was a mirage. I talk about Donald Trump all the time. He's up there as a real estate guy arguing for negative interest rates to keep the economy going. Negative interest rates. That is foolish. That is stupid. And you have to put your money in high risk assets to try to do what the Lord Jesus tells you to do in Matthew 25, get a capital gain, where he says at the very least you could have put the money in the bank and got a capital gain on it, got some sort of return on your investment. You can't do that now in this economy. You've got to put your money in high risk assets to try to do what the Lord Jesus ordered you to do. Take a risk. God likes guts. The Lord Jesus is a capitalist, according to Matthew 25 and the parable of the talents. Okay? So you can't put your money in a bank and make any money off a savings account, off a money market account, off a certificate of deposit, a CD. Interest rates are too low. They got to go higher. The economy is a mess. It's going to throw us into a recession. The market is in correction mode. The stock market now is in correction mode. The NASDAQ has been in correction mode for a couple of weeks now, below 10% of its high. It's correcting. And interest rates are rising. The TLT, which marks the 20-year bond, that the valuation is dropping as interest rates rise. That's how it works. Interest rates go up. The underlying value of the bond or the debt instrument goes down. And let me tell you something. If you think a stock market crash is bad, you wait until the debt market crashes, which is larger than the stock market. You wait until the debt. You talk about wealth. You talk about a transfer of wealth. It's going to be unbelievable. A transfer of wealth that we haven't seen since the Great Depression. And it's coming. And it's primarily because of Democrat economic policies. It is coming. Now, I'm not saying that, what's going on right now in the market, that's, Armageddon, all stuff like that. But it can't continue. It's just basic economics. And you're continually pumping money into the economy. And these fools up in Washington are still being champions of pouring more money into the economy. And you already got inflation and supply chain disruptions, and they want to put more money into the economy.
So what you're basically telling the people is if they keep putting more money into the economy, they're going to bankrupt us.
That's how Hitler, like I said earlier, that's how Hitler came to power in Germany in 1932, 1933. Because of hyperinflation, the Weimar Republic was dismantled. It was taken down. And the National Socialist, the Nazis, which stands for National Socialist, true fascism, where you have a combination of private enterprise and government working together in partnership, first really introduced by Mussolini in Italy, the first real, Benito Mussolini, the first real fascist who was Hitler's idol. And that's what swept Hitler in, hyperinflation in Germany. It led to dictatorship, economic distress. That's what led to Hitler. And you know the rest of the story.
Exactly. I tell you what, man, we could go on and on and on, but I think you guys on a nightly get a lot of information. And of course, they're going to have somebody come through. Don't listen to them. They don't know what they're talking about. Well, if we don't know what we're talking about, why it's so messed up out here? Why you can't seem to get it right?
You can't listen to us, 5-star. Nobody,
No.
anybody listening to us can't say we don't know what we're talking about. Anybody listening to us right now, anybody shares this video, anybody shares this audio, they cannot say we don't know what we're talking about. They can fact check us all day and all night, and they will discover that we are the ones that are telling them the truth for their own personal and collective benefit. It's us. We're telling them the truth.
Well, I think that regardless of how they do it, that I think that the Republicans, especially in Harris County, they're going to decimate the Democrats. They're going to decimate them. I mean, y'all can get ready for it.
It's going to be
You're already crying because you can't play the early ballot game right now.
It's going to be a bloodbath in November.
You're going to get decimated.
I can't wait to be there for your swearing in.
Oh my God!
I can't wait.
We're gonna bring the hood to the dome.
Oh boy, we're gonna party.
We're gonna bring the hood to the dome. We coming in candy paint.
I tell you what, I'll find the money to get the oxtails. We're gonna have oxtails for a celebration.
There deal, oxtail and greens.
Hey, there you go.
There deal.
You know anybody that can do some yams? You know anybody that can do some yams? Maybe a little dirty rice? I don't know, man.
Oh, we got all that covered, man. We're gonna bring the hood to the dome, man. I promise you that.
I want them.
One thing that they're gonna get from me:
gravy, juicy. I want that juicy gravy. I want to see.
You want the 40 weight.
I want the meat falling off the bone. Okay.
Oh my God. Say, man, I'm gonna just say this here.
Slow cooked.
When we win, you're gonna get a guy that don't know how to stop working. Here's the thing that you get more than anything with me, because of the mind frame that people have you in, that we can't work with the Republicans. We just can't get any movement because of the Republicans. So when I win, I'm Gary Monroe, your peoples. I'm gonna still pick up the phone. I'm gonna still answer your emails personally. But now when we have a problem in the community where it was a Democratic stronghold, you already got a Republican ally. You finally got somebody at the table. at the damn table that's not going to play the game, that's going to get in there and fight for the people.
You finally truly going to get your cut of the pie. When housing is being rebuilt after a natural disaster, your house is going to get rebuilt properly.
What you're going to get from me, you're going to get somebody putting maximum pressure on the education committee, because ain't one school in my district going to be a failing school no more. The crime rate, if they can't do something for the whole city, we're going to get something done for my district, because I'm not finna put up with this crime, man. So that's the thing. It's time to put the no-nonsense people in office.
I want you to focus on free enterprise for 131.
No problem.
I want you to focus on job opportunities for 131. I want you to. I would like for you to be continue to be a strong advocate for free enterprise for HD 131. I want you to advocate for the elimination of property tax, so that our people can stop getting taxed out of their homes. That disproportionately impacts Black homeowners and renters. Okay, we want it gone. We want it gone. Okay, we want that border sealed, because our youth need those jobs, those entry-level positions. Our youth need those entry-level positions to build a resume and a career.
You think about the recidivism rate for people going back to jail. A lot of people end up going back to jail because when they get out, nobody won't give them a chance. You see what I'm saying? They won't give them a chance. They can't find a job,
man.
They have nowhere to stay.
I've tried, brother. I've tried to hire those that were recently released from incarceration. Mm-hmm. And the requirements for the employer are too onerous.
Exactly.
You got to give them a chance. You got to give them certain days off, so because they got to have their home visit by their parole or probation officer. Okay, you got to subject yourself to interview by the parole or the probation officer. You got to have the parole officer come into your place of business to make sure that so now his business is all out in the street. The person that you've hired, trying to give them a new start. Now the business owner business is all out in the street, because here come a parole officer rolling up. All this paperwork you got to fill out.
We got to get somebody in office that want to get this type of stuff fixed. You see what I'm saying? Because we can lower the recidivism rate. I want you to think about, as you drive around Houston, look at all the work being done on freeways.
Don't see no Black people.
And I guarantee you a whole bunch of them ain't supposed to be here.
You don't see no Black people. All the infrastructure work going on right now.
They're hiring illegals. They're hiring illegals. And that's why when you hire these illegals and they making all this money, a lot of times you got to pay them in cash. And that's why the jackals running around robbing them, because they know they can't report it. But push that aside, we have enough people that are being released on a daily basis in the state of Texas from the penal system that if they could just get a job out the gate, they wouldn't have to sell dope anymore.
They tell us they're supposed to be getting job training in there some sort of way. They can't get out unless they get their GED. Okay, so, but when they come out, they can't get a job because it's taken up by an invader who shouldn't even be here. That's the kind of criminal justice reform that we need, where it's Texas first, Texans first, criminal justice reform. Give these young men and women the opportunity to actually straighten out their lives. Don't make it so onerous for them to flow back into the economic system and make a living legally.
Well, I tell you what, they got a choice in the matter. They can either let them make a living legally, or they going to get their hustle on. Because I can't tell a man not to feed his family. I can't tell him not to feed his family. You feed your family by any means necessary.
Do you hear Republicans, 2 Black Republicans, talking about the truth of the criminal justice system and what needs to be done by Republicans and Democrats? We hold our own accountable. We hold our own accountable. Democrats don't do that.
Exactly.
Democrats don't do that. We do on the GOP side. We say shut down that border
I
because
don't know what people think, but as a Republican, why wouldn't I advocate to give somebody a second chance coming out of jail? That's stupid. Because some kind of way, him not having that second chance is going to affect me. It's going to affect me. So no, I have to sit down with the Republican, power brokers that be, because I would be a freshman. But God damn it, I ain't coming off the bench. I'm starting as a freshman. And let's have this conversation. Because not only is it black guys coming out of jail, it's white ones too. It's Latinos too. It's Asians too.
Who not illegal.
Exactly. They're all Texans.
Been here for generations, since before the Alamo.
So if a man or a woman pays their debt to society, if you don't have a problem taxing them, you shouldn't have a problem with helping them get back on their feet.
And voting.
Exactly.
And the restoration of all their rights. They're still citizens. They don't lose their citizenship just because they have been convicted and incarcerated. This is
the way that I feel about that. If they get out of jail, now this may go against what some people think I should say. If they get out of jail and they got to pay state tax, they should have the right to vote in a state election. And I'm a Republican saying that. So if you want to tax them, then they should have all the rights that come with a person that's being taxed.
They're still a citizen and they've paid their debt to society. They've paid their debt to society. They're still a citizen. If they've paid their debt to society, all their rights should be restored.
Exactly.
Period.
From the gate. From the gate. But you ain't got no problem making them pay that money.
But we hate black people. But we're the racist, right? But we're the ones that are advocating for the restoration of their rights, their constitutional rights, because they're still citizens.
Well, I tell you what else we could talk. We could just go on and, let's talk about it for a split second. I need to get you off of Section 8. I need to get you off of welfare. I need to help you start your own company. You are not going to live the life that you want until you stop making somebody else rich and make yourself rich. Now, when you making that kind of money, you ain't gonna live there anyway. You finna move your family to a better situation. You feel what I'm saying? I think that we can all have it all. But what we gotta stop doing, look, man, I went through the pandemic like y'all. I ain't getting no PPP loan. I ain't want that foolishness. You see what I'm saying? When there's a massive hurricane or a flood, I don't go get no public assistance. I'm a man. I'm a grown man. For me, it's about fixing these schools. It's about teaching entrepreneurship. That's what it's about. And if that's not what we're gonna do, then shit, we're gonna all be in the soup line.
Pro-family, pro-life. I mean, that's another reason why I'm a Republican. The number one cause of death of black people in America, it's not police misconduct, it's abortion at a rate greater than the African triangular slave trade. We're approaching 25 million black babies having been murdered in the womb since 1973. We are 13% of the population, and nearly 40% of the abortions in this country are performed on black children. We are the only demographic of color, if you will, that has not increased its percentage of the population. The only ones.
You know what else, man? We got so many pandemics we've been dealing with. I wonder how politicians feel when they're driving down the streets and they see homeless encampments. We can't seem to get rid of these encampments until the Super Bowl come to town.
Oh, yeah.
Until the All-Star game come to town.
Then they crank up the bulldozers and
they get rid of them. They find them somewhere to stay. And, it is what it is. I've told people forever We got something and they won't even use it. You could solve homelessness almost real quickly in Houston. If not completely wipe it out, at least 90% of it wiped out. You know why? Because what the hell are you doing with the Astrodome? That should be the world's biggest shelter. You could put everything in there for those people. You see what I'm saying? You could build that thing out and just turn it into something major. But see, we don't want to address the elephants in the room. What we want to do is we want to get to the Pink Dome in Austin. We want to line our pockets, get our envelopes under the table, and we good. The hell with all this other stuff. We just going to get in front of the cameras and act like we doing something. We got too many pandemics going on. Sex trafficking is a pandemic. Homelessness is a pandemic. Failing schools is a pandemic. Crime in general is a pandemic. But I tell you what, ain't no other politician out there can say what I'm about to say. Brother, look me in the eye. For the last 10 years, and I had to be reminded of this yesterday by Dr. Abdul Halim Muhammad. For those that don't know it, formerly Dr. Robert Muhammad. He say, gee, you know what? He say, where's the gang violence at right now? That was our thing. So you done stole our plans to stop violence in this county. When you gonna give us our credit? Well, the gang-related murders at right now. The motherfucker missing just like the flu. Maybe we knew what we were doing. So now if I can get to Austin, we gonna pass some legislation to deal with this crime. You feel what I'm saying? We gonna put some money into some organizations' hands that know how to stop this crime. Not slow it down, but stop it. I want somebody out there to tell me that I'm wrong right now in Harris County. Where is the gang-related violence? They kept saying it for years. It was there. All we got right now, realistically, is some knuckleheads running around just committing random acts of violence. We put the work in for the gang-related violence. You see what I'm saying? There's no person sitting in office. There's no person running for office that can say they did the work that we did.
Can't take credit.
They cannot take credit. And I'm going to be honest with you. I need you to champion this move. When I die, if I die, you make them motherfuckers put a statue of me in 3rd Ward, Texas. Because ain't nobody did it like me. Nobody did it like me. Man, I'm going to tell you something. You have a plethora of information. And it's always an honor to sit in a room with some people that I can have a legitimate conversation with. We may not agree on everything, but we can get to some common ground.
Civilized.
Exactly. Where we are right now, it is what it is. You got an opportunity. They done left the gate open. You can either walk out and walk off the plantation, or you can stay on it. That's your call. But I can promise you one thing. You said the Democrats, right, were the ones that wanted to keep us in chains. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I get this right, brother. I could have swore Joe Biden was a Dixiecrat. I could have swore Crazy Joe was a Dixiecrat. And here's my thing. You won't believe us, but you'll believe a Dixiecrat, huh? See, every night, man, it go down. Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I want to thank my guest, Apostle CLAVER.
I'll be back.
And I am the 5-star general. Say, man, call me a runaway slave. Monroe Kente. Because I done ran away from the Democratic Party and I ain't coming back because I was free until Monday. I got some schoolwork. I'll let y'all, man.